Okay. So we're being recorded, so that's great.
Yep.
Okay, so welcome. This is kind of an effort by the coaches to educate you guys as the student athletes around nutrition and the dining hall and kind of taking ownership over your food, which we've been receiving a ton of feedback, myself especially, around the food, how bad it is, there's no options, all that, this and the other. Hopefully, we can dispel some of those thoughts and give you guys some practical solutions to actually better help your experience when it comes to finding food in the dining hall and supporting your experience as a student athlete. Okay. So we've got Coach McDonough from the cross country team, track and field, as well as Coach Solis. He's our rugby coach. Some of you have seen him in the weight room doing some of the monitoring hours. They are here to help talk about all the things that we're going to talk about today. And hopefully, you can use them as a resource as well, within reason, of course, when you see them around campus or if you wanted to reach out to them specifically. Okay. So I'm going to pass it off to Alana. She's going to talk to you guys about kind of nutrition basics and like macronutrients and stuff. So go ahead, Alana, when you're ready.
All right, sweet. So yeah, here is a quick crash course in macronutrients, which are basically the things that we're looking for in our food to sustain us, to fuel us, to keep us alive, things like that. So there are four macronutrients, them being water, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So you've probably all heard of these before. When you're talking about food, these are the buzzwords that you often hear. So I'm just going to go over real quick sort of what they do, when you might want to eat them, and then maybe for some different sports, how those proportions might be altered to suit those sports. But so first of all, the big one, water. We cannot live without it. Our bodies are 60 to 70% water, and as we exercise or just live, we lose water and electrolytes through sweat and respiration. So I see everybody walking around with their Stanleys. I think people are generally good at this, but water is the first macronutrient. So that is something that we need to pay attention to, especially as athletes, and especially as people who maybe are sitting in class all day and we're not necessarily thinking about it all of the time. So carrying around a water bottle is super important and just sort of keeping up with that. So water. Second one being carbohydrates or carbs. Carbs are the main source of energy for our bodies. So daily tasks, fuel for your brain when you're sitting in class or doing homework, energy for movement, getting up and out of your chair, walking to the dining hall, and then for fueling your sport. So everything that we do, um, carbs are an energy source for that. Generally, we take in carbs and then our body does a good job of breaking those down into glucose, which are absorbed into the bloodstream. And this is what we use for energy. So, this is what goes into the engine to produce our energy. There are a few different ways to break down carbohydrates. Generally, it's how quickly our body can access the energy that they have within them. So, first of all, there are rapid energy carbs, as I'm going to call them. These are generally simple sugars. So when you think about it, things like cookies or donuts or maple syrup, um, Sour Patch Kids, things like that, stuff that it's like jet fuel. You put it in your body, and then very quickly your body can break it down and turn it into energy. These are best either right before a practice, or in my case, a race, or sometimes if you're doing something for a very sustained period of time and you start to feel low energy in the middle of practice. These are things that your body can easily digest and turn into energy in the moment. So during your practice, during a run, stuff like that. So those are your rapid carbs. Then there's slightly less fast. These are the majority of carbs that you eat. This replaces the stores within your body between workouts. So this would include things like white rice, bread, pasta, bananas, generally the stuff that we don't think about that we tend to take in all of the time. These are carbs that are going to replenish those stores in your body that are coming in our main meals throughout the day. And then we have the slowest carbs to digest. They're still carbs. They still provide the same energy, but they generally contain lots of nutrients as well. So wheat bread, potatoes, apples, carrots, broccoli. So I know not everybody is a runner, but if you have experience with running, a good way to think about this is like what generally feels good in our stomachs before a run. So the easiest carbs, like having a half of a cookie before a run, like you're not going to feel that. That's going to turn into instant energy. Whereas the slower carbs, if you ate a whole thing of broccoli and then tried to go for a run, you're still getting carbs, but it takes longer to digest. So you're probably still working through that process when you're at practice or on a run. So just different like speeds that your body can process, but it's getting the same energy from all of those things. So those are carbs. Then we have proteins. Proteins provide structure for cells, including your muscles, hormones, antibodies. And we're not necessarily hoping to use proteins for energy. We're using proteins to help build up the muscle that we break down during exercise, or if we're trying to, gain muscle mass, we need proteins for that. So those are providing structure. If we are breaking down proteins during exercise, that's generally not a good thing. That means we've run out of carbs and we're turning to proteins, and our body does not like that. So things that have protein: chicken, eggs, cheese, beans, nuts, soy, milk. These are some awesome ways that we can get proteins in. So generally they're coming from animal sources. There are plant-based proteins, and we can definitely talk about that in future conversations if people are interested in what the differences between those are. And then lastly, there are fats. So sometimes these get a bad reputation, but they are a macronutrient, which means that our body needs them. So fats help support immune function, protect our organs. They facilitate our nerve transmission, vitamin absorption. And in the case of sort of more prolonged activities, if you were to run a marathon or you were to have like a doubleheader game, your body is eventually going to turn to fats for an energy source because carbs don't last forever. We can only store so many of those. So eventually your body will turn to fats for energy. Some foods that have really awesome nutritional fat content would be avocados, cheese, meats, eggs, nuts, olive oil. And of course, there are fats in foods that we would probably consider unhealthy, things like French fries, or let's see, like a cheeseburger. And they're not necessarily evil fats, but we just need to understand like what is the quality that we're getting from that. And so things like an avocado or cheese or eggs, those generally have higher quality fats in them. That's not to say you can't eat the other fats as well. So let's see. So what does each sport need? We all need all of these macronutrients to live, but different sports might favor slightly different proportions. So if you're doing a speed or power sport, so you're a sprinter, you are running to first base in baseball or softball, things that are really quick and fast and demand that movement instantly, that's going to rely heavily on carbs. That's in your bloodstream. It's stored in your muscles. Your body goes to that first for that rapid energy. So high proportions of carbs, you need proteins for muscle development and strength, and then fats to just maintain your like proper bodily functions. Like I said, it's helping with nerve transmission and protecting your organs. And so then when you move over to endurance sports, like a cross-country runner, someone who's going to run a 5K and 8K, maybe you're doing a double header, maybe you're a soccer player and you're playing midfield and you're running back and forth for, an hour, 2 hours during the game. You will also rely heavily on carbs for energy, but after prolonged periods of time, when those stores start to deplete, your body will turn to fat stores for those. So it's important to make sure that you are getting good, healthy fats when you're an athlete who's doing sort of prolonged exercise. And then we need proteins for muscle upkeep. Prolonged activity damages the muscles, and so we want to make sure our body has the protein to repair that and sort of get back to baseline. So we all need all of them, but just the way that they contribute to our sport slightly changes. Yeah, that's the crash course.
Sweet. So that was really good. That was very in depth, and hopefully that gives you guys a better understanding. I just want to actually highlight a couple things that Alana said. Water. Obviously, I'm big on water. Make sure you're drinking it. I think the tip of always having a water bottle on you and like bringing it with you to class and drinking it throughout the day, that's a more like realistic hydration method than trying to drink as much water as you can an hour before you start practice. That's not really going to be super helpful. Your belly will be really full and stuff like that. And then talking about like carbs, I thought that brought up an interesting idea, or not idea, but like thought around like the timing of your food. that's going to depend on the individual person, what you digest, how sensitive you are to foods and that sort of thing. So start considering as an individual, like, oh, I may need to eat 2 hours before practice or 1 hour before practice, or what I can eat within 30 minutes to an hour before practice, that kind of stuff. That's also important that you start to like just identify that for yourself. So, but anyway, we're going to turn it over to Tony. He's going to talk about more specific stuff around the dining hall. Okay, so Tony, when you're ready, take it away.
All right. Well, hopefully we can hear me. Um, Battling some cold issues now, but it should be okay because we're right here. So one of the things that I thought was really important to bring up is the ability to kind of make a make a template of food work for you, regardless of the situation that you're in. And I think that cafeterias are often um, much maligned. You know, everyone wants to complain about the cafeteria that they're in, and I've been in some pretty ridiculously amazing cafeterias, and we will always find things that we don't like about them. But I think the fact of the matter is we have to be very adaptable. You know, what my mom and dad used to make me for food isn't always going to be what's available to me at a cafeteria. I have a very picky 7 year old, and she would struggle in the cafeteria on a day-to-day basis because we don't have exactly the things that she likes. So I think it's important that, especially as athletes, we start to diversify our palate a little bit. And most people wouldn't know that many vegetables and some fruits, especially the bitter ones, they're an adaptable flavor profile, meaning that we don't typically love them the first time that we have them, and that we require a few exposures before we start to realize, like, oh, that's actually pretty good. So the common example I always give is Brussels sprouts. You know, not everyone's going to love Brussels sprouts. I certainly was not a Brussels sprout fan the first time I tried them. They were poorly prepared. I think they were steamed in a microwave bag, and not that great. If that's what you've got, that's what you've got. But that wasn't the best introduction for me. I found when they were roasted or when they were, you know, sauteed in a pan with some olive oil and some seasonings, ooh, there's almost, in my opinion, nothing better. So, you know, it did take me a little bit. So my point is, when you're experimenting with your food, it's really going to be important that you try things more than once, right? Once is not going to get it done. If I only learned how to kick a ball the very first time I did it, and then I was set, right, we would need practice. So I think as we practice in our sports, we've got to practice with our eating, and you're not going to get it on the first go. You're going to have to try things and you know, tweak and adapt as you go along. So with that in mind, I think it's really important that we take the cafeteria, the dining hall as a whole. And you're going to really have to explore a lot of different options. Like I did today, I would go there almost every single day for at least lunch. And I had to walk around to all the stations before I figured out exactly what I was going to do. And I think it's really important, before I go too far down this rabbit hole of how to be adaptable, that we also talk briefly about portion sizes. So Coach McDonough just talked about the different macros that there are, and I think a lot of people are familiar with the word macro. I think what we're less familiar with is, how much do I need of each one, and what does that actually look like? There are documents out there that we can find, but one of my favorites is from Precision Nutrition. And that's a company that's been around for a very long time, and it's a very simple method of figuring out what you need for food. So for the most part, they'll look at portion sizes using your hand. And I think that's really relevant because very rarely are you going to have a giant person with a tiny hand or a tiny person with a giant hand. It happens; they're an outlier, but by and large, we're going to fit our hand pretty well. So when it comes to proteins, that's you. If you use something about the size of your palm, right, the thickness and the width and the size of your palm, that's probably close to a portion of protein that most of us would need at most meals, right? Sometimes that might be a little on the larger side, and I think for me, I would want a couple of those in a meal. But I think if you use that as a gauge, that'll give you a starting point. For your vegetables, if you think about your fists, you want a couple fists of vegetables at each meal. That can look like a lot of different things. No French fries are not a vegetable. But you know, just about anything else that you're going to find at the salad bar, over on the entree station. You know, not the curly fries. No, no. But, you know, and I don't think I would count all the vegetables on a pizza either. Just because it's a veggie pizza doesn't mean I'm getting my veggies from the pizza. All right. So we would want more than that. But a couple of fistfuls worth of vegetables at most meals, it's not going to do you wrong. And then when it comes to the carb side of things, which can be a tricky subject for some of us, I think it's important that you look at a cupped palm. So whatever would fit into a cupped palm, there we go. That's going to be probably close to a portion of carbohydrates. Now, again, that's going to differ depending on the person. But if you use that as a starting point, then over time you can start to tweak and find out what works really well for you. And working with your coaches, and we're hopeful that maybe we can speak with one of the dietitians as well and kind of get a little bit more info for you guys. But that is a great place to start. So palm for protein, cupped palm for your carbohydrates, and then fists for your vegetables. Those are some really easy ways to go about it. So as I transition into how do we make that work in our dining hall, right? So for today, for instance, you know, I think I went to all of the stations, looked at them, and I found that the entree station was bare. Cupboards were bare, old Mother Hubbard. So there was nothing there for me. So what I ended up doing was saying, I can't wait around. I've got no time to wait around. I need to go to a different station. And so I ended up going to the deli station. I ended up going over to the salad station. And then between those two places, I was able to get everything that I needed. So it's not always going to look like a meal might have been prepared at home. There have been times I have 4 or 5 different plates from different stations in order to get the things that I needed. And that's totally okay. Don't think that it's all got to fit on one plate or that it's got to be perfectly manicured like a photo. It's not going to be how it is, especially as an athlete. You're going to have to go outside of your comfort zones in order to find out what's going to work for you. So I think there's a lot of options, but I'm going to tell you one thing right off the bat. The pizza station is probably not going to be your best friend as an athlete in terms of fueling yourself appropriately on a regular basis. That's a place that's going to be much harder for you to quantify what's actually in that food. They're going to do their best to give you serving sizes and whatnot, but that's always going to be challenging. So the French fries, the fried foods, the pizzas, that's going to be more challenging. But in a pinch, if that's what you've got, that's what you've got. And at the end of the day, as an athlete, you'll probably burn most of that off anyway. And at least you've got it in there to fuel you in your practices and your training sessions. Okay. Finn, Alana, can you guys think of anything else that you would want me to add?
No, I think that's pretty solid. Do you want to just go into your recipe real quick? Kind of like
Yeah.
what maybe specifically what you did today?
Yeah. That's handy because that's exactly what I did. So today I wanted to do, today was a non-training day for me. If it were a training day, I might have a little bit more food, but probably not a whole lot more. So I always try to have a big ass salad. Sorry for the profanity, but that's just what I like to call it. And I'm a big fan of if I can get one massive salad in a day, then I don't quite need as many vegetables as some of the other meals. That works for me. It has for over 20 plus years of being an athlete and beyond. Now that I'm entering middle age, it's still working for me all right. So I'd highly encourage you guys that if you can have a big salad every day, that's going to go a long ways. What that salad looks like is a couple of tongs full of lettuce, a tong full of shredded carrots. I think I had a tong full of some tomatoes. I love cucumbers, so I had a couple of tongfuls of cucumbers. I put some beets in there for some non-starchy carbohydrate. If I can get it out of beets, I thoroughly enjoy that. And the pickled ones are one of my favorites, and I don't keep them at home, so I like to get them here. And then I also put in some raw broccoli just because I think, broccoli is something that's really great. And when you cover it in some dressing, it's usually not too bad for most of us. And then I threw in a couple of scoops of eggs just for some extra protein. I'd say it was probably 2 eggs, which is, you're probably looking at about a half a palm of protein at that point if you were kind of keeping track on that method. And then I went over to the deli station and I got what I would imagine is probably about 6 ounces total of deli meat. So I got about 3 ounces of turkey breasts. And if you look on the thing, it'll tell you what that is. Then you've got to figure out what that looks like. So for me, that's a couple of slices, 2-3 slices of that turkey breast is probably going to be pretty close. And then a nice scoop of the chicken salad. And I do like cheese, so I took some pepper jack cheese. For some people, you may put that in the salad. Me, I'm weird, and I actually like to roll the chicken salad up in the turkey and kind of eat it like a little mini meat taco. But everybody's going to find their own way to get it in there. And I think so. That would be today. You could also turn that into a sandwich if you wanted a little bit more on the carbohydrate side of things. Maybe you've got a game or a training session later. And that would be a really great way to sneak some extra carbohydrates in there for fuel and still have all those other pieces in there. Now, again, that's for probably an athlete that's looking to maintain their strength and their power. Maybe they're looking to add muscle mass, and at the very least, they're doing a lot of trainings and they're trying to at least maintain muscle mass. So that's kind of, what maybe what my plan would look like for someone like that. So kind of sort of like me.
For sure, for sure. No, that was really good. I think also Tony brought up a really good point about consistency of food, which is kind of like my part of this discussion around as an athlete, once you find something that works for you, it's a pretty good idea to stick with that generally throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, year, so on and so forth. Um, Especially when, as we've discussed, right, and you guys are well aware as athletes, the dining hall sometimes doesn't have exactly what you would want. And Tony mentioned like it's not going to be just like mom and dad cooked at home for you, right? You're going to walk in there and you need to get your protein and your carbs and your fats, and it may be you're having to figure that out alternative. But if you find something that works, try to stick with that. So if you do, Tony gave a great example. He has a big salad every day, and that has worked for 20 plus years. That should be something you guys as athletes should be trying to identify what works for you and try to make it consistent. Something that I used to do, or I still do, I eat almost the same breakfast every day. I've started to kind of alternate it between a couple of different like meal options, but I love yogurt, Greek yogurt in particular. So I'll do Greek yogurt with some fruit. Like I typically do blueberries or maybe strawberries, depends on the price of the store every week, to be honest. Um, and maybe I'll have like a protein bar or some type of protein powder if I'm specifically trying to supplement in that way. And then my lunch and dinner are typically a little bit more variable, but that's what works for me. I like to make sure I nail down my breakfast every week. An example of a professional athlete who eats the same thing prior to competition. Okay. Some of you may not know who this is. His name is Jamie Vardy. He's a professional soccer player. He plays in the English Premier League. He has a ham and cheese omelet and a Red Bull before every game. And yes, like obviously I kind of hammer the like stay away from energy drinks. Keep in mind, right? Outlier in this case, I would say. He's 38 towards the end of his career. It's worked for him his whole career, but that's what he eats. A ham and cheese omelet, whether the game's at 8 p.m. or the game's at middle of the afternoon or it's a morning competition. He has that before each match because that's something that prepares him for competition and gets him probably in some ways in the right mindset too as well. And he's been a very high performing athlete now for several years at the top level of his sport. So that's just one of what is likely numerous examples of athletes all across the world that eat consistently for probably every meal of the day, for every day of the week, and every month and year that they've been competing. So you're going to have to figure it out. It's not going to happen overnight. Sometimes when you eat something, you may not like it the first time. Try it again or do a different combination. Once you identify it, I think it's really important that you try to have that at least a few times a week. Considering the dining hall is variable, of course, it's not going to be perfect every time. Okay, so before we finish, Tony's already mentioned his kind of meal approach for the profile of athlete that is more of like a strength and power person who's like trying to put on muscle mass and is trying to be really targeted in that way. The nice thing about the three of us is we kind of each are like representing almost the type of athlete that we're going to talk about. So Coach McDonough's got more of an endurance focused recipe, let's say, or approach to the food in the dining hall. And I've got more of like a hybrid athlete, typical like runs, but also needs the power and explosiveness aspect. So I used the food at lunch on the recipe or on the menu from Tuesday of this week. And I simply tried to keep it as fast as possible in terms of like the food wouldn't take you like too long to eat, most likely. and wouldn't be too hard to digest. So I just looked at the menu and I picked options, and this is what I came up with. Okay, it may not be perfect, it may not work for you, but as someone who needs kind of a variety of the different macronutrients at different levels for my type of, exercise profile, this is what I picked. So I started with lo mein noodles, right? Nice big carbohydrate source. I needed vegetables, so there was grilled vegetables, so I went and put those on my plate. That was an easy way to get some veggies. Okay, lots of different veggies. I'm sure there was peppers and onions and garlic and maybe some like broccoli or snap peas. I'm not totally sure. Okay. I decided to grab a salad. They have a lemony chickpea salad that day. Chickpeas are great source of fat, a little bit of protein as well. And then I grabbed some soup, split pea soup. It doesn't always look very appetizing. Peas, when they're like all mushed together, do look a little bit the consistency isn't, everyone's favorite, but it is a good hearty soup. And then I just had some eggs because I wanted to get a bit of extra protein. I didn't have quite enough in the meal, so I grabbed 4 hard-boiled eggs from the salad station, and that was my meal. So, Alana, you want to share yours, and then we'll wrap it up, and that'll do us.
Yeah. So I think I used dinner last night, and I did two different things. I did a vegetarian option and then a meat-based option. I'm not a vegetarian, but they're just in college and even now I just have days where I prefer to eat vegetables, so I flip back and forth. Um, so veg option, corn tortilla, put a little bit of cilantro rice on there, smother it in black beans for some good proteins. Then I'd probably top it off with a little guac for fats, grilled pineapple salsa, and then some shredded cheese for some additional proteins. Maybe a little bit lacking in the veggie department, but we can't always be perfect. But I definitely would opt for beans if I had just done a practice and needed some non-meat-based proteins. That's just what I tend to prefer. And then for my meat option, I'd probably do mashed potatoes. They had a lemon, garlic broccoli. I'd probably get a separate like a separate bowl and like pile the broccoli on there. I love broccoli, so cram as much on there as I can. And then they had a garlic chicken and a meatloaf. I wasn't sure which one I would pick out of those two things. I like both of those things. So maybe as a runner, I might opt for the red meat option. And then the tomato and red onion salad. And in order to be a little bit better with veggies, I'd probably start with a small salad just to make sure that I'm tossing some like raw carrots and stuff on there to make sure I'm getting a little bit more veg. But yeah, I'd lean into the carbs and make sure I was getting some protein too.
Sweet. So those are kind of just 3 examples. There's going to be numerous ways to do it. And at the end of the day, you have to take control of your experience. I say this all the time. Every time you guys are coming in the weight room, I've probably mentioned this to you numerous times that it's in your hands, literally. Everything that we're doing is providing you with the tool. It's up to you what you're going to do with that information and how you're going to apply it to yourself to give yourself the chance to be the best athlete and student that you can be. So, the last thing I will say, there's nothing that we can change. Okay. However, there's a new chef. Okay. They just started. They're introducing themselves around campus to different staff members and stuff. And it sounds like they have a background as a student athlete themselves. So hopefully you'll start to see maybe a bit more protein options. I know that's a particular area of concern that I've heard from most athletes, that it doesn't seem like there's enough protein. Hopefully that begins to change in the short term. And I would just encourage you guys to ask questions. If you don't know something after listening to this, do some research, ask questions. And then we would like to hear what specifically maybe you're wanting to know more about if we were to do something like this again. So make sure you're letting myself or Alana or Tony know, or telling another coach that will tell us, like, we want to know that stuff so we can better understand what you're not getting and what you want to know about, so we can tailor this again if we do one in the future. Okay. So that's us. Thanks guys for doing this. And hopefully you guys benefited from this in some way. Okay.